520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. Special guest in studio, Joseph Blair from the 1994 Arizona Final Four Wildcats class of 1996 joins us in studio. It's been a while, Joseph, since we've had a chance to get you back in the building here. Great to see you. What brings you back to town?
Oh, man. First of all, I always come to Tucson just because I love Tucson. So let's start there. But also, I'm in the process of working on a project here at the city where we're doing one of the, out at Palo Verde Park was the East Side Park. They had some old tennis courts that weren't really being utilized. So we are changing those tennis courts into basketball courts.
Awesome.
So there'll be two NBA regulation-sized basketball courts. They'll be the only courts in Tucson with high school three-point line, college three-point line, and NBA three-point line.
Wow.
Covered, solar lights, everything. And the reason it's such a near and dear project for me is I'm naming everything after my mother, Judith Blair. So it'll be the Judith Blair courts at Palo Verde Park. So I'm just in town trying to raise some funds to get that done. I'm collaborating with the city of Tucson. The city's putting up some funds, but also I need to put in some private funds to get this done. So trying to meet with some people and also get the word out. So right away, let me say this. Anybody wants to jump in and help me do something amazing that honors my mother, but also a great thing for the community, JudithBlairCourts.com is a website. You can donate as a tax-deductible gift as well. So if you're worried about that, no worries. When you donate, even online, right away, you'll get your tax receipt. So help me do something good to honor my amazing mother. I am who I am because of my mother, and I know she's touched so many lives in this community, and I just felt it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Probably one of my favorite people that I had a chance to come across here in this community was your mom. Always would come up and introduce herself, reintroduce herself. It's like, hey, you don't have to introduce yourself. I know who you are, Mrs. Blair, and everything. And just was great around the programs, always supporting both Arizona men's basketball and Arizona women's basketball. Is that how you got your love for the game? Just the love she had for it?
Without a doubt. She, you know what's crazy? She never was able to participate in sports as a youth because there were no girls' sports at her school. And being a twin to her twin brother, she watched her brother do everything while she got no chance to do anything. And my mom used to always say, I could shoot better than him. I was faster than him. All these things better than him. And so she really just instilled that love of basketball for us. I remember, any basketball players that have been at practice, you do a three-man weave. And everyone knows a figure-8 three-man weave. I learned doing it. It was my mom, myself, and my brother in the road in front of our house, her teaching us how to do a three-man weave. And then she became my coach in Little League for 2 years. So it's just been everything about basketball is really just instilled by my mother, her love of the game, her passion for the game. And that's obviously why she's always been my biggest fan as well, because she loved basketball so much and got to live vicariously through me in a lot of aspects as well. But anyone who's seen her at one of the men's or women's basketball games, if you didn't see her, you heard her.
Exactly. Joseph Blair joining us, Arizona basketball class of 1996, longtime coach now. It seems just like yesterday you were on Sean Miller's staff getting this coaching thing going. What were those initial years like when you decided after playing that this was something that you wanted to do and you were just kind of learning at the feet of Sean here with this program?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm one of the players that I didn't jump right in from retirement to coaching. I spent 7 years here in this community, just working in the community, doing things, started 2 different charities while I was here, sat on the board of multiple charities, and then I kind of fell into coaching. But it was one of the best experiences for me. Probably the first 2 years with Sean were the most I learned, but also the most I grew to become the coach I am now, because I really didn't speak much. I was just, okay, what can I learn? Because, you don't want to disrupt a program that's already going pretty well. But I learned just so much terminologies, how to deal with players, how to organize. I tell Sean all the time now, like, oh, man, I learned such organizational skills from the way in which you organize practices, the meetings, everything was amazing. So it was, and him being such a defensive coach, it was interesting because I went from Sean to the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
And if you know the Rockets, back then in particular, they were a high-powered offensive team. So I learned such great basics of defense from Sean, and then I go to balance everything out with the Houston Rockets. So it was a great experience being here, and I really think that it kind of springboarded my trajectory into coaching.
You got, obviously, you left here and you went right into professional basketball. Did you think that was going to be the path? Did you think you would maybe stay in college, maybe go somewhere else and be an assistant? And how did that happen that you just were able to get that opportunity right into the NBA?
God had a plan. That's all I can say. It was interesting. Actually, at the time, the general manager of the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, which is the Houston Rockets G League team, he was my former assistant coach in Italy. It was Gianluca Pascucci is his name. We're good friends, and he called me and said, Joseph, look, are you really serious about coaching? I'm like, Gianluca, let's do this. What are you talking about? He said, well, because we have assistant coach position, and you might be interested in it. And this was after my first year under Sean. And I interviewed. They flew me out to Houston. I had multiple interviews with everybody, the big brass, as you would say, of the Rockets. And they offered me the position. And I turned him down that year, crazily enough. Nevada Smith was the coach, and nothing against Nevada, but I remember calling Daryl Morey and said, Daryl, I just want to tell you why I'm turning it down. I love the process. I love everything, and you guys all asked me questions. The one person who didn't talk to me really was Nevada, and he's the guy I was going to be with all year. And I said, I just think I can stay in Arizona and learn more under Sean for one more year than what I would do if I was to leave right now. Fast forward another year, Matt Brazzi, Coach Olson's grandson, former Arizona Wildcat, former Arizona coach as well, becomes the head coach of the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. And he calls me and says, so, JB, I would love to have you on staff, but I'm not going to bring up your name if you're not going to say yes this time. And I was like, well, Brazzi, it's different. It's you, man. Like, I'm so invested in this because I want your success as well as my own that how could I say no? So I went through the process again, a little bit shorter this time, and I ended up being assistant coach with the Vipers after another year. I was an undergrad assistant my first year at Arizona, and then I was grad assistant afterwards. So most people don't know I finished my degree. I was a full-time student. I was carrying 15-plus units a semester. Even in grad school, I was doing the same while I was still doing all my community work, and I was still coaching at the same time. So it was people ask me how I did it. I did not sleep is what I did. So I got it all done.
What did I want to know what your mom's process was in making sure you got that degree?
You know, she never really was harped on me about it because honestly, I was still successful in some other ways. I didn't need the degree, honestly, but I wanted to do it because it was just it's one of those benchmarks of your life. You want to do it, and no one in my family had graduated from college yet.
Wow.
So I was the first graduate in my entire family of college at 40 years old. So it was something I really just wanted to do, and I know she was super proud of when I did it, and I'm so happy that she was a part of that as well. Just a part of the process of me being here, getting into coaching, and seeing what I was doing in the community. I got her to move out here from Houston. Most people think she moved while I was playing here. Actually, she came after I'd already finished at school. And she decided to come out here, and it was just a great situation for her. She loves the community. She loved Tucson. She used to tell me once a year, she'd call me and say, Joseph, I'm so thankful you got me to move out here to Tucson. I love it out here. I love the people. I love the weather. I love everything. So I'm just honored she was a part of me graduating and being a part of the whole process of me coaching here at Arizona, and I think that got her even more invested in the sports scene with the U of A.
What were the stark differences between coaching here on this level at college and then when you got into the developmental stage of the National Basketball Association?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you're a coach of the G League, this year right now, so I'm the head coach of the Vipers, but I'm also assistant coach with the Houston Rockets. So I'm involved in all the training camp with the Rockets, and then when my season and preseason, and as soon as my season starts, I go off to where my team is, and as soon as I finish, 3 days later, I'm back with the Rockets again to finish out their season. So it's not even just the G League, the way they play, but it's also the way the NBA plays. Right. And it's mixed because you still have NBA players down in the G League. They get assigned two-way players, all types of things, W-10 players and your normal G League players. But the speed of the game was just different. And the athleticism of the players, the talent. You go from working out with a guy in college and you're like, okay, let's make 10 threes in the corner. And then, they may shoot 15, 20 times to make 10 threes. Where in the NBA, we're like, all right, you need to make 8 of 10 before we leave the corner.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of those guys do it on their first try. They're 8 of 10 here, 8 of 10 at the next spot, 10 of 10 at the next spot. Just the eliteness of the athletes is so different.
Yeah.
And the physicality, the athleticism. I can tell you, even being around Aaron Gordon in college, you see him and you're like, oh, man, he's super athletic. But now you look at him, you're like, whoa, he's more athletic than he was in college. And now look how old he is. So it's just the growth they have, the conditioning, the strength. They build in, they grow into their own. So the speed of the game, also the shot clock's different. The three-point line's further away.
Yeah.
The court is longer. Everything's different. So it's a really a different beast altogether. I think that's the hardest transition for a lot of the players also is just they get there and understand like, oh, the talent level here is different. And you're playing against grown men that are out there trying to feed their families.
Joseph Blair joining us, Arizona basketball class of 1996. You brought up Aaron Gordon. Are you surprised he's developed into such a skilled outside shooter at that level?
No, honestly, I'm not. Aaron was one of those guys. He was a gym rat when he was here. I remember times we'd say, hey, Aaron, you cannot come in tonight because we need you to get the rest, because he was a guy that would wear himself down.
Yeah.
And then you get to the games and he looks a little tired. You're like, he's tired because he was up here at the gym till 11 o'clock last night shooting. But I know he's a constant professional. He wants to master his craft, and that's what he's always done. He's going to work hard at what he does. He's going to continue to try to progress as a player. And if you really look at most NBA players, as their career goes longer, they become better shooters because now they don't want to rely on their athleticism as much. And he was a guy that was, more or less the face of the Orlando Magic for years before he went to Denver. So he was constantly building and growing his game. And then when you get around Jokic, you better learn to shoot too, because he's going to make some great passes to you. And if you can shoot the ball, you're really helping yourself and you're helping the team and helping him.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you mentioned you were an assistant at Rio Grande Valley. Then you got your first an opportunity to be a full-time bench coach in the National Basketball Association. Did you think that would come as quickly as it did?
No, I didn't, to be honest with you. I didn't. And the way it all just came about, I think, God had his hand in everything as I continued to on my path as a coach. I went from 3 years as assistant, which honestly I will say is still a lot for the G League. 3 years as assistant coach there. And then I got my chance to be the head coach the following year. We won the championship my first year as a head coach.
Right.
And then right away I go to Philadelphia 76ers is the fourth assistant school we call back of the bench coach. We have front of the bench coaches and back of the bench. I was a back of the bench coach there. But still, I was just – it all happened so fast. I want to say my worst year as a coach was probably that year in Philly, because I was there and just in awe and trying to learn so much that I wasn't applying as much. And I remember I saw Brett Brown. He was the head coach at the time, but then he was with the Spurs the last few years. And I was like, Brett, I have to apologize. I was trying to learn instead of trying to coach. But I learned from that year so much of how I need to be a better coach. So as I moved from the Sixers that year, I went to the Timberwolves the next year as Anthony Edwards' rookie year. I was there working with him. Actually, my players were Anthony Edwards, Jared Vanderbilt was my other player I worked with, and Jaden McDaniels. So I'm so happy to see those guys doing well. But that's when I really came my own as a coach, had my own voice. I was very adamant about adding quality and adding value to the team constantly. And that's what I've kind of done since then. But it all happened so fast because I went from head coach here to Sixers, and then right away to the Timberwolves.
Right.
Then from there, I went to front of the bench coach right away with the Washington Wizards for 3 years. So it's been a whirlwind of a career for me so far. I just say it's all God, because I would have never expected it. Because if you would ask me even 15 years ago if I would have been a coach, I'm good. I love what I do in the community here in Tucson. I didn't think I'd ever get into basketball coaching, but here I am, and now I love what I do. And whenever I run out of gas with this, I'll be right back here in Tucson doing what I was in the community again.
I want to take you back then to Minnesota, and you mentioned Anthony Edwards, who's become one of the primary players in the association right now. When you first got him there, what was it about the skill set that you saw that you thought, this is a guy that maybe 5-6 years down the line could be one of the best players in this league?
Or first of all, he's like a man-child. His strength and athleticism. Even you look back, people look at his highlights now. Look at his rookie year highlights. Think about it. He was not in college 4 years, and he came out. He was just strong as all hell. Rim finishing was amazing, and he just has a confidence and bravado about himself, possibly to a fault. But I will say, in that league, it works, and it works for him. And just seeing his development, and he still grew his rookie year. He grew another inch during that season.
Right.
And now he grew an inch and added on a lot more muscle as well. And he's another guy that just loves to get in the gym and work. He loves to play basketball. He loves to compete. He's a competitor. So when you get guys like that, when you mix that perfect mix of everything together, you expect great things. And I expected great things from him. Even that rookie year, he was great. And you're like, wow, if he would get this, he'd be much better. But then you look and like, no, he's pretty damn good already. And he's only gotten better.
Joseph Blair joining us, Arizona basketball class of 1996. So you mentioned, obviously, you came in with the Sixers back of the bench coach. You get to Washington, you're front of the bench coach. What are the different duties between those two from when you're a lead assistant to when you're maybe one of the fourth assistants?
Yeah, so really every head coach kind of divides their staff differently. To give you an example, the Rockets, for example, don't have what you would call a lead offensive coordinator or a lead defensive coordinator. Everyone just kind of helps. Well, the Sixers are different. And even what I do with my staff as a head coach, I have a head offensive coordinator, a secondary offensive coordinator, and then a head defensive coordinator, secondary defensive coordinator. So when I was with the Sixers, I was a secondary offensive coordinator under Kevin Young. Kevin, if you follow sports at all, you know he ended up coming to the Phoenix Suns.
Right. Now
he was a lead assistant there, and now he's at BYU doing great things there, implementing an NBA-style game at BYU.
Yeah.
So I'm super proud of him, by the way, if he ever listens. Kevin, keep doing your thing. KY, we talk pretty often. So the differences there is I was the secondary offensive coordinator when I was with the Sixers. Now, when I went to Minnesota, they didn't fire anybody. They just wanted to bring me on. So when they brought me in, Ryan Saunders was the head coach at the time. He said, hey, JB, just help with both. If anything you have to say, just say it. Defense, offense, it doesn't matter. And it was interesting because he was so good about in every meeting saying, JB, what you got? JB, what do you think? Because this was during COVID time too. So a lot of our staff meetings we're literally in our offices in the building on Zoom for our staff or coaches meeting as we walk down the court with masks and gloves on to go through practice. It was a terrible time, but it was really good for me as a learning and growing because again I got to speak on both sides of the ball. When I was as an assistant with the Vipers under Matt, I was a defensive coordinator. Now I became the head coach, and then I went straight into the offensive side with the Sixers, and now I'm back kind of in my zone where I get to talk about both again. And then when I went to the Wizards, I was the lead offensive coordinator. So my duties are more so, okay, everything you look at offense. I'm constantly looking at our offensive stats. Where are we at? Are we good? Points per game, pace, spacing. What's that look like? Do we need to add another play? Back then we had Bradley Beal still there. So I go, how do we work Brad in the offense? What do we do to get Kyle Kuzma going? Caldwell Pope was with us still. So how do we get him going? You know, we had Spencer Dinwiddie for a while during those first year. So, and then we had Porzingis as he came. So, you know, you add a guy like Porzingis, your offense changes completely.
Yeah.
Because you have a 5-man that's completely different than Daniel Gafford, who's our other 5-man. So it's just those type of things are really my responsibility. You know, I'm happy to say, even though we were very poor defensively with the Wizards, if you go back and look at our offensive stats, you know, we were for most of the season, my last year at least, number one team it was us in Indiana, the 1 and 2 in pace in the league. So we still played fast, and that's the way I like to play. So it's a very different responsibilities. And when you're secondary offense coordinator, back when I was with Philly, Kevin Young, we kind of broke it down where he was after time, we call them ATOs, after timeouts, AFTs, or after free throw plays, more call plays. Then I did a lot of the fast break stuff because, again, I love the pace. So I'm looking at kick aheads. Are we getting to the corners and spacing? Are we keeping the floor space? I worked on all Joel's post-ups, and then our sideline and baseline out-of-bounds plays were a lot of my responsibility.
Wow, it's just it's interesting just to kind of hear the intricacies of how the game's being played, and when we talk about it all the time on our show, so how it's so much now 5-out type of 5-out type of game that we're seeing here at the NBA level. Did you think that it would become that, I guess, when you were watching it, where it would be so much more about shooting than maybe a less inside play?
I think that, I think a lot of people don't like that, and I'm going to explain why I think that is, especially when I talk to people in Tucson, particular, because Tucson, particular, we are Arizona Wildcat fan base. We watch college basketball. Quite frankly, when I talk to people, they right away bring up, have you seen this team and this team? They're all talking college basketball, where I'll be honest, I'm so swamped with NBA games constantly that I don't watch a lot of college basketball anymore. And when you watch college basketball, it doesn't translate per se to NBA. For example, they're like, oh, no one posts up anymore. Well, post up work when you have a longer shot clock. But if you throw the ball into a guy, you throw the ball to anybody in the NBA, and they keep the ball for 5 seconds out of a 24-second shot clock. If you're lucky, you get the ball across at 18 seconds. If you're lucky, because typically people 16 seconds, we have an 8-second clock to get it across. They really get across at 17. You initiate offense. By the time you get the ball to your post player, you're like 6 seconds on the shot clock. So if he doesn't score or they double team, you're screwed. So the 5-out works better because there's more ball movement, more fluidity, and it opens for penetrations. You don't want no one holding the ball for 5 seconds unless it's Jalen Brunson or your star player.
Right.
And even you look outside of that, and that's really playoff time. If you look at Giannis, doesn't hold the ball for 5 minutes. He's going to do his thing. Even Jokic, he gets rid of the ball within 5 seconds, making a pass, making a play, whatever it might be. So in college, you can do that. You can hold it for 5 seconds. It doesn't work. You throw it out. You call another play. Like I've watched college games. It's like, wow, they ran 3 plays in one possession. We never get through. If we're lucky, we'll get one play in the possession. And then you have to just rely on athleticism and what you've taught the players how to play together to get the score. So I'm not surprised that it went that way. Also understand, again, I kind of learned my professional tutelage was under the Rockets, Mike D'Antoni's system. I was first there with Kevin McHale, then D'Antoni came right away. So for 3 years, I basically learned D'Antoni's offensive system under a organization. Daryl Morey, as a Jonah manager, was very analytically based. So it's all about analytics. And if you think about analytics, not to be too schooly here, but typically the average, the effective field goal percentage for shots that are in, we call non-paint twos, which is anything outside the paint, inside the three-point line, is so low that it doesn't make sense to shoot those shots. Now, you have outliers that are guys that are such high percentage shooters that they can still do it. Joel Embiid is a perfect example of that. Jalen Brunson's a good example of that. Bradley Beal for a while was a great example of that as well. But as a general rule, it's a much less effective shot. So you try to discourage that. And, numbers based. So say if you're shooting 33% from non-paint twos, which is normal, quite frankly. It's right in the range. And people don't even shoot 50% from those non-paint two shots. If you're shooting 33% from there and you shoot 3 of those, you've scored 6 points. Now, a corner 3, if you shoot 33%, that's a bad 3-point percentage. And the corners are the highest percentage shot because it's the closest to the basket.
Right.
Most people are shooting almost 40% from those shots. So if you shoot 40%, you shoot 3 of those, we're at 12 points now. That's double the points. So why would you ever shoot the other one? You should always kick it out to try to get those extra points, because even the above the break threes, which are those like above the break there and top of the key threes, they're still a better field goal percentage than those non-paint twos. So why would you ever shoot those? Now, I think it's still we're kind of transitioning back in the league to people shooting more of those because they're becoming more effective. And you need to open them up because people are learning to defend the three-point line better than they did 5-6 years ago. So it's continued to trend, in my opinion, but I don't think they're ever going to get away from it. Also, if you look at the way the league is and the way the rules are, freedom of motion is everything now. So you're going to try to get to the rim to get fouled, to get the three-point line, the free throw line. And if you don't get fouled, what's your next option? You're kicking it out to someone at the three-point line. So they can either shoot it or do the same. So
Joseph Blair joining us, Arizona basketball class of 1996. So you got to the lead seed at Washington. So I would assume when you get to that point, there's a possibility that at some point, due to circumstances, you might be actually coaching the game or taking over the ball club. How much advance notice did you have to that day? I think the coach came down with COVID or tested positive for COVID or something of that nature, that you were going to be actually the head coach on that for the first time in an NBA game.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know, but I had 3 games as head coach in the NBA. I was 1-2 at those games, but the 2 games I lost was a total of 5 points.
Yeah.
So we were and it wasn't like we played bad teams. My 3 games was Philadelphia 76ers, Toronto Raptors, and the Brooklyn Nets back when Brooklyn was still really thriving as well. And when it was Kyrie and KD were still in Brooklyn together at the time. So I was a second assistant. So in kind of the way the thing goes, for people who don't know, you have the head coach, then the first assistant, second assistant, third assistant. And the first, second, and third, we are us 3 at the front of the bench. Then you go fourth, fifth, and depending on the staff, how many assistants they have. I was the second assistant. And our head coach, Wes Unseld Jr., was already out with COVID, and Pat Delaney, who was the associate head coach, was the head coach for maybe 2 games at the time. And it was Martin Luther King Day. We were one of the Martin Luther King Day games. I think our game was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that day. And my cousin had came to town to visit, so I went and picked him up from the airport. I'm back at the house. It's like maybe 9:30 in the morning. I'm shaving my head, getting it nice and good because I know we're on a TNT or CBS game that day. I'm like halfway through my hair right here, and my phone rings, and it's Pat Delaney, the interim head coach at the time. He says, "Well, brother, it's on you today." It's like 10:15 in the morning. We play at 3. So I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. So I finished cutting my hair, and I really just leaned on my experience as a head coach in the G League.
Right.
Because I was like, okay, this is what I usually did. This was my process to get ready for the games. So we went there. We had a walkthrough with the team, and I kind of did what I did. I did some modifications on some things, and we went out there, played the Sixers that day. And I'll be honest with you, I was excited, but you can imagine the anxiety and nervousness. But I think that it's always a blessing that I had the head coaching experience already, because I think that most coaches, if you've ever been a head coach, it's easy to sit back and be like, it's easy when you're on the bench telling like, oh, the head coach should do this. It's different when you're standing up there. That's the one thing we always say. It's like, it's different when you're standing up there because everything falls on you.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, why didn't he do this? Yeah, you had plenty of time to think about it. It's all in the moment now, to call a timeout, to call a challenge, to call the play when the player looks at you and you're like, okay, run this. You have to always be like almost one step ahead of the game constantly and locked in significantly. And God bless, we won that game. We beat the Sixers by a nice margin as well. It was my first victory as a head coach. And I remember when I finally kind of calmed down, it was the first play of the game. I drew up a play. Again, it's our ATOs, we call them after timeout plays. And that's really the only time that we get to get outside of the box of what we do with our normal play calls is when you're drawing up plays. First play of the game, I drew up a play where it was going to either be a lob dunk for Daniel Gafford or a pop back 3-pointer for Brad. And I threw the lob, Gaff dunked the heck out the ball. I was like, okay, I'm all right. And then the rest of the game went, and we won the game. I was super excited about it. Doc Rivers was the coach at the time with the Sixers. They had a great team that year, too. So James Harden was still with them. Joel Embiid was there, and Maxey obviously was still there. So it was a great win for me and just great notch on my belt. I saw the ball, so I'm excited about it.
Do you think you'll be a head coach at some point?
No, we're manifesting this, DK. What are you talking about? I am going to be a head coach in the NBA that's going to win a national championship, a world championship, I should say.
Okay.
So.
Oh, there we go. I like that. I like that confidence right there. Joseph Blair, class of 1996, joining us again. He is here in town. He is raising money for the Judith Mama Blair basketball courts at Palo Verde Park. I mean, I was just looking through the brochure you gave me. Like you mentioned, it's going to have 3-point lines for all the different levels, which is going to be real cool. Why this particular park? Was this a park that was special to you guys? Or
honestly, what happened, Corey Williams, I think everyone in Tucson knows Corey. Corey did a park at Jesse Owens Park over on the east side as well. And when he did it, I remember Paul Cunningham helped him with that as well in the city. And I was like, I went to the ribbon cutting. I was like, man, I want to do one of these. What's going on? I didn't even know you guys were doing this. And Paul's like, well, I'll be on the lookout to see if we can do another court or we can do something like that. And then he hit me up with it. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you. I'd love to do it, but I would more so love to name it after my mother instead of the Joseph Blair courts or Joseph Blair or whatever. But I said, but my caveat is if I'm going to do this, I want this to be the best court the city has right now. If they're going to surpass it later, at least we're going to set the bar really damn high. And this park worked because it had the length of the courts. Because Corey's court, nothing against it because it's a great court in the community. Jesse Owens Park, if you have a chance, go even see it. Just has Corey Williams with the big block A on there. It's super cool. And I told Corey, I was just with him last night, like, you were the inspiration for me to do this. I was like, thank you so much that you did it because you paved the way for me to do this. But I wanted the best court in the city. So this worked because of the space they had. So no other court in the city is NBA regulation length. No other court in the city has all 3 of those 3-point lines. And even the solar lights with the hard top on top, and both the courts are right there attached to each other. And the big thing for me, it sits in the middle of a community. It's not offset. You don't need a car to get there. If you live there, you can walk there, you can bike there, and then still other people can come in. And it's such a big park. You know, they have a pool there, they have a dog park, they have softball fields, soccer fields, baseball fields. Everything's there. So I feel like this is what builds community and brings community, and this park worked great for what I wanted to accomplish by doing this in honor of my mother.
If people want to get involved, how do they do that?
JudithBlairCourts.com. If you go on there, you can click on the donate button. It'll send you to a site for the city. You'll hit continue a couple times, then you just go down and designate your funds. It'll say Palo Verde Park Judith Blair Memorial. Designate your funds right there, and they'll give you your tax certificate right away. So just, there's a tax write-off for anything you do because it's going through the Park Foundation. So all these contributions are tax deductible. It's a great thing. I just say, for people that know what I did in the community, I've been here. I ran 2 different nonprofits. I started 2 different nonprofits while I was here, running free of charge basketball camps for kids. For 20 years, I did that. And no child ever paid to come to my camp. And then at the height of that, we were not only doing the camp, but we were doing clinics throughout the rural areas of the community. We were out in Bisbee. We were out in Sells. We went to all these different places. And at the height of our organization, we were serving 1,100 kids a year coming through our program. Even in April, in Autism Awareness Month, we did an autism clinic as well. We just really tried to dive into the community. And with all that being said, anyone's ever seen me run the events, speak at an event, host an event, I never got paid for anything. I never took a salary. Even though I was executive director of my own charity, I was president, I never took a salary, and I still sat on probably 6 other board of directors at the same time. Never took a salary for anything. I did everything because I believed it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do to build a bigger and better Tucson, bigger and better Southern Arizona. And I just ask people to join me again doing the right thing. I'm doing this not because my name's on it. I don't get any money out of it. I'm honoring my mother, but it's the right thing to do for this community. This is the things we need. I grew up playing on parks like this. I grew up playing like this. This is how I became the player I am and the man I am. This is how I became made friends and become socially adept. Right. Because I went to parks and played. This is how I became the tough player I was, by playing against guys bigger and stronger than me at the parks that told me that wasn't a foul, and I had to play through that stuff. So, again, and there's no agendas behind it. This isn't a political stance. There's nothing. This is just the right thing to do for the community, and that's what I've always tried to be a part of and tried to do here in Southern Arizona. I'm continuing to do, and I don't even live here anymore, quite frankly. I'm going to retire here, by the way. I will retire back here, but I have not lived here in almost 10 years. But here I am. I still believe in this community. I still believe I'm a Tucsonian at heart. I'm a T-Loc, regardless of what people say. I'm a Houstonian, too. No, I've got to give props to my Houston people, but I'm still a T-Loc. Part of my heart always stays here, and I take part of Tucson with me in my heart wherever I go. What
was the biggest key to the jump the Rockets made this year? Obviously, besides having one of the best young international players in the game in Alperen Sengun.
I think just their youth, and first of all, I can't help but acknowledge Ime. Ime does one heck of a job of coaching these guys. Yeah. He gets them to play with a certain mentality, a certain presence, certain physicality, because that's the way he is. I think he led the league in technicals for coaches and ejections. But just that's the way he plays. And he's very hard-nosed and direct with the players like that, too. So he expects that when they're on the court. And if you look at the way the Rockets played this year, that's the way they were. They had a bunch of physical, athletic, young guys that bought into this is the team we're going to be, this is how we're going to play and how we're going to be. And they took that in. I believe that there's overachievement that happened with our team. Because if you really look at any other team that made the playoffs, I've said this quite a few times the last month, every team has a superstar. There's a max contract guy or a supermax guy. The Rockets don't have one. If you say game's on the line, who are you going to go to with Golden State? We know who it is. Who are you going to with Minnesota? You know who it is. Who are you going to with the Knicks? You know who it is. Who are you going to with the Rockets? I'm not real sure. They just need to play hard and together. Because any given day, it could have been Fred VanVleet had an amazing game. Could have been Alpi had a great game. And then Jalen Green steps up and has his games. So I just think that they did a great job of pulling together as a team and playing hard.
Who wins the finals?
If I had to choose right now, I'm not a gambling man whatsoever. I'll say that. But if I was to put money on it, right now I would go to OKC. I just think that they're a tough team to beat. Defensively, they're so aggressive, and they kind of play on a string together. Now, looking at the 2 different situations right now in the conference finals, I think that going to the East first, New York, I'm not sure that they can keep up with the pace of Indiana with the minutes that Tibbs plays those guys. When you're playing 45 minutes as Jalen Brunson, and you're getting trapped when you are coming off of ball screens, and now you're asked to guard 2 on the other side when you're playing that many minutes at the number 1 pace in the league, that's really hard. He plays those guys, his core 8, so many minutes. I'm not sure they can keep up with that pace for a full series. And that's why I think it's kept Indiana in the game right now, because they play at such a high pace. So I think Indiana probably will come out of the East. Now, looking at the West, believe me, I love Minnesota. Chris Finch, I love him as a coach. I think he's an amazing coach. Anthony Edwards, all those guys, I just named them all. I love it. You know, when we would go play in Minnesota, I would almost walk in their locker room because I wanted to say hello to so many people that I knew there. But I think that the cohesiveness of the Thunder is going to shine through. It's really difficult to win in Oklahoma City because their fan base is really strong there, and they're so youthful. They have I feel like one guy goes down, another guy steps up. One guy goes down, another guy step up. Plus, they have the MVP of the league on their team this year as well. I think he has a point to prove because he didn't win it last year. Now he got it, so you better rise and shine right now.
Well, yeah, 38 points last night was a pretty good way to rise and shine.
100%. So I think he's going to step up even more so. But then when those two teams meet with the Oklahoma City and Indiana, which I think the league doesn't want because two small market teams are going to be in the finals this year. But when those two teams meet, when you look at their matchup, well, I just think that the pace of Indiana is not going to trump the youthfulness and togetherness of Oklahoma City because they're not playing against guys that play 40 minutes, and they're just as young. They're just as vibrant. They have guys coming off the bench with the same amount of energy, but they're also the number one defensive team in the league too. So they're going to be able to match that defense, and we'll see. Either way, it's going to be a great game, but if you ask me who's going to win it all, I'm going with Oklahoma City.
You're known as the vegan coach. What's the key to your vegan lifestyle and making sure that you're eating the way that you want to eat?
Well, you know, I was vegetarian for a very long time. My whole playing career, I was vegetarian for 10 plus years. And then when I retired, I kind of fell off the boat. I ate everything. I moved back here to Tucson. I was having some media, some going over to BK's, some Guero Canelo. I was all over everything. And then one day I got a phone call from my girlfriend at the time, and she said, I just saw this documentary. What they do to animals is terrible. I'm becoming vegan. And I said, well, you know what? I love you, and I support you. I'm going to become vegan, too. I'd already been vegetarian, so I was like, okay, it's one more step, but I'll do it. But looking back when I was vegetarian, it was all about my health. People saw me in college. I was a little chubby, little chubby, still really strong and sexy, but, you know, a little chubby. And then my body transformation really happened when I changed my diet. I became vegetarian, and obviously my work ethic improved as well as I became a professional, but really transformed my body. And so when I was vegetarian, it was all about my health. I just felt like I performed better. I had better energy, everything when I was vegetarian. So now as a vegan, I will say it's twofold. I still believe that my health is much better as a vegan. I don't think our bodies are designed to eat animals or animal products. I truly believe that. But also the secondary thing is if I can live and thrive and be healthy and strong, and, you know, I'm still 6'10", 250 pounds. I'm actually lift bigger weights than most of our players, and I can do all this without causing any death whatsoever. Why would I not choose that? It is the ethical and right choice to make. If I can live without causing death, why would I not do that? So not only am I not causing any death, but I'm also living better health-wise. Like, you know, I don't want to go on and on about this, but I could go on and on about the health ramifications and health benefits of a plant-based diet. So I think I look youthful for my age. I take care of myself. Everything really revolves around my diet, and I truly believe if you want to be disciplined at anything in your life, if you can discipline your diet first, everything else becomes easy.
Outstanding. Hey, Joseph, we appreciate you taking some time to join us. Always great to see you back in the community, and definitely want to see this happen for your mother, because she was one of the great people in this community for sure.
Thank you, DK. Always great to see you too, man. By the way, my mom always talked about y'all's Ohio connection. So.
Absolutely. Hey, you're another one of the great basketball players that have come out of Akron, Ohio, right? It's a pipeline.